Thank you.
Sean, how are you? This is Dave Mixner. It's good to see you. It's coming out day today in the United States. I remember when Gene O'Leary and Rob Eichberg started it. That's how long I've been around, and I'm a big fan of Congressman Sean Maloney, who's here today. He was staff secretary to President Clinton. That's where I first met him in the White House, and a very key, openly gay man in the White House. He has represented for 10 years the 18th Congressional District, if I'm correct, up in upstate New York. And this year he's running in the 17th Congressional District because of redistricting. And he has, he has to introduce himself to some new folks. But most importantly, he is one of the most exciting, charismatic, bright, one of the smartest people I know politically in the Congress of the United States, and I know how much Nancy relies on you. And he is in leadership. He is the first openly gay person in leadership. He is chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Fund Committee, the DCCC. He's married with Randy, my dear friend Randy, and 3 kids who are all grown up and out of the house, I think.
Yes.
Sean, thank you for doing this. How's it going for the Democrats in the Congress? It's been your job. You've broke record after record in your fundraising. Each quarter seems to get better. You've raised a record amount for Democrats across the country. What do you think?
Well, I think it's wonderful to be here with the great David Mixner. And I remember well those days in the 90s when we first met, and when you were among a very few Americans who were brave enough to be setting the pace and changing the world for those of us who came right in behind you. And without, for those of you watching, without people like this man right here, I could never have been staff secretary at the White House. I certainly never could have lived my dreams, including family. You were just kind enough to mention. Randy and I have been together for 30 years.
Wow.
Celebrated that this year. Yeah, right. And we've been 29 of those 30 years raising kids. They are now in college or beyond. And I think, David, you would agree, it's a beautiful thing when your country catches up to you. But it didn't just work out. It worked because people like David Mixner worked. So it's humbling to be with you. Thank you for your many contributions. Look, this year we're in a fight. We're not supposed to win, right? We're supposed to lose the first midterm of a presidency. That's what everybody's been telling you for a year and a half. I think that's wrong. But I agree that it's a real competition. Now, the whole world's changed in just the last couple of months. I guess the last few years in American politics, we should all be used to anything being possible. But the horrific decision by the Supreme Court to throw out 50 years of reproductive freedom, and with it, the privacy rights, by the way, that all LGBTQ plus people depend on in the Constitution. All of our families depend on the same constitutional line of cases that includes Roe v. Wade. So we're all in this together, and that decision really reset the table this year. And millions of people have become activated because of it. We've seen extraordinary results in Kansas, in Alaska, in upstate New York, and a bunch of special elections, and they're all pointing in the same direction, which is that people they're activated and they're getting involved. And so if that continues, I think we can surprise a lot of people, but it's going to be a fight. And
all comes down to turnout.
And that's the name of the game. We got 4 weeks to go.
Those women upset about the Supreme Court decision, they got to turn out. The most important thing they can do about it is vote. Those young kids in college and in our community and so forth who has started taking things for granted. The fact of the matter is that Republicans have made it clear that marriage equality is next before the Supreme Court. And already the attorney generals of Florida and Texas are drumming up cases to take that right away from us. And if you think they can't do it, then look at the Roe versus Wade. Sean, the New York Times today did a story saying that one of the key states in this taking Congress is New York, which is sort of surprising, and listed yours as a district with a tough race. What do you know about New York?
Well, I work for a very famous Californian Nancy Pelosi, and I know you and she share that in common. So, not to be outdone, California is very important as well. But New York does have a bunch of competitive races, and of course, I've had to fight for my seat 5 times in a row. Folks, you may not know this. Donald Trump won my district in 2016, and while all the districts are new, it remains super competitive. And the point is that if you think a gay guy with an interracial family was a shoe-in a Trump district, it's just not the case. And so it's nothing new, but boy, we're feeling it. I mean, I'm managing 75 races around the country. All of them are important in their own way, but there are a handful that will really determine the whole future of our country, the future of the Biden presidency, control of the Congress, and everything that goes with that right now. And my own race is one of them. And so that makes me sort of a player coach. And I'm going through what all the frontliners are going through. And look, we're just gonna do what we always do. We're gonna work every day as hard as we can, and get the vote out and win this race.
Just so people know how important it is that you're in leadership, the first openly LGBTQ plus person in leadership in Congress. Will Rollins, who we've interviewed on this blog and had just recently done a fundraiser in Palm Springs, talked about how important it was to have you inside to help get his campaign off the ground. Clear across the country, California, Palm Springs, Riverside area. And it just points out how important it is that pioneers like yourself has given up and sacrificed so much to be pioneers. And it was just a powerful thing. They sent me a clip of it. It really moved me because I've known how hard you've worked, how hard your family has sacrificed, what Randy sacrificed. There's 5 seats in New York, they say. Zimmerman and Jake and Fitzpatrick, is it?
Yeah, well, yes. So we've got 2 competitive districts on Long Island that are either filled by Republican or open. That's the old Lee Zeldin seat, East End on Long Island, the Garabino seat. A little bit to the west of that, we got great candidates there: Bridget Fleming, Jackie Gordon. We have 2 Democratic seats that have become open by the departure of Tom Suozzi and Kathleen Rice. So we have 2 great candidates there: Robert Simon, Laura Gillen. Those are stronger Democratic seats, and we absolutely have to hold them. We got Max Rose running on Staten Island. So that's just when you get to the city, and then above the city in the Hudson Valley, we got a bunch of competitive races. Mine, Pat Ryan, who's made some big headlines recently, just north of me, and then north of that, in what's left of the old Antonio Delgado seat, we've got a great candidate named Josh Riley running against a Republican named Marcus Molinaro. We're going to win that seat. And then in central New York, with the departure of Republican John Katko in a Democratic district, it's always been pretty good for us, but had a tough Republican incumbent there. It's now open, and we've got a great candidate named Fran Knoll running there. So those are all hot races right now. So that's why the Times is writing that story. And so look, New York is got to be part of the solution here. So if you live in New York or you want to get involved, please do. We need your help.
Has the governor been helpful to you, coordinating with the governor on these races?
Well, yeah, she's got a campaign of her own, of course, and that usually is a good thing because it means that we're all pulling together on turning out the vote. I was just with her in Poughkeepsie. The President of the United States came last Thursday to Poughkeepsie, New York, to celebrate $120 billion with a B, $120 billion of new private investments in the industries of the future in the Hudson Valley, in central New York. That's all part of the Chips and Science Act, which is a revolution for American manufacturing. Governor was there with us. Yeah, look, we think we all do better when we all work together. So vote Roe A all the way is what we say in New York.
Well, speaking of the president, the recent Recovery Act that was passed with your help and others really affected me deeply. Unfortunately, not for 2 years yet to 2025, but in the last couple of years, I've had over $400,000 in copays for healthcare. And that legislation caps it at $2,000 a year in copays, which means I would have saved almost $350,000 in healthcare costs that I could have put back into this economy.
Well, that's such a great point, David. I mean, so for people that don't know, in the Inflation Reduction Act, for the first time, we finally are going to start negotiating drug prices with the big drug companies. That's number one. What David's talking about is equally huge, which is to cap seniors' out-of-pocket costs. So if you're on Medicare, we are now going to cap your cost at $2,000 a year. Now that's enormous because you can budget for that, you can plan for that, and you can have some peace of mind that no matter what happens, that's going to be your maximum cost for prescription drugs. But lowering the cost of those drugs by negotiating their prices is key. And so, for example, insulin is now only going to be $35 a month in the Medicare program. Got more to do. We got to do more with the private sector on that. We had that in Build Back Better, by the way, but in the compromise bill that got done, we're still making big progress. So thank you for mentioning that. It's just one of the big things we've done in this Congress. We got to get the word out.
One of your major committees, real quick, is transportation. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And how's it been working with Secretary Buttigieg?
Oh man, he's a rock star, and I see him all the time, and he's been a big help in lots of ways on the official side. He's doing some stuff for us on the political side because our candidates want him out there on the campaign trail. The guy made history. He's inspired millions of us, and needless to say, he's got a very bright future. I know he's got his hands full with two small children, and Randy and I have been over there for dinner with him and Chasten and the kids. And I got to tell you, as someone who's now an empty nester, it really brought me back. And so he's got a lot on his plate. But
there's a sense of relief that your children had grown up.
I will tell you, David, as I enter this new phase, it is a bit of a bittersweet thing. My kids were home for the weekend. It's a weird thing when your house is empty and you expect it to be full of them and their friends. On the other hand, there's no dirty dishes in the sink. So there are some upsides too. And no, look, it's great. My kids are all doing well. And that's a real source of comfort, even in this crazy world.
In this spirit of coming out day, which is, I believe, the most important decision I've made in my life was to come out. What's your coming out story briefly? When did you come out?
Yeah, well, you were around. I mean, so I came out of the closet right after law school. I moved to New York. And it really had to do with, Randy is the first guy I met in New York. We met on May 23rd, 1992. We were in line at the Roxy. I was in the closet. He was very much not. And I think love is what brought me out of the closet, but also I think an understanding of what you just said, which is that I could never really live my full life if I was living a lie, if I couldn't integrate the most important pieces of my life, my mom, my dad, my brothers, and a future spouse and relationship and the family I even then thought that I could build. And just thank God there were people like you and others who really kicked open some of those doors for us. And then hopefully we've made a contribution of our own, trying to pay it forward to people like Will Rollins and others who are going to take us to the next level. But yeah, you got it, man. I mean, I think the cornerstone is I can remember standing in the driveway and having just a little epiphany. I think I was still at law school, and I thought to myself, this is who I am, and there's not a thing in the world wrong with it. And once I came out to myself that way and accepted it, everything else seemed pretty straightforward, and it made all the difference.
Well, Sean, I'm so proud of you. So honored to have worked by your side over the years. It's one of the nicest things that I've ever done politically, was support your political journey. And you've been a pioneer in so many. I went through the list today of either the first or second LGBTQ plus person to do this or to do that. You have been in the forefront. I'm hanging on because I hope maybe 10 years down the road, you're Speaker of the House, and I get to see that. But I know that you're one of our best and brightest that we have in the Congress of the United States. And all of us, thank you. And thank you for doing this interview, and knock 'em dead.
Thanks, David. And well, look, I plan to be at your future Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House, and to follow all of you properly. But folks, you
better hurry up with that.
You got a legend right here, and was instrumental. Wrote the first check anyone ever wrote to me as a candidate. David Mixner did. Should have framed that thing. Instead, I cashed it. We needed the money, but David has helped so many people like me. You guys know that, and so thank you, David, for all you've done. Thanks for having me on, and I hope everybody votes. Man, you got to vote. You got to vote this time. This is
got to reelect this man, and so Down below in the description will be a link where you can contribute to Sean Maloney. He needs the money in this last 4 weeks.
I do.
I expect you to contribute. I will keep track of who contributes, and I will be after you if you don't. Sean,
Awesome.
thank you. Love to the family. Love to Randy, and knock 'em dead.
Thanks, David.